She is best known for the author of her award-winning children's fantasy book series, the Bella Santini Chronicles, which gives children and their parents tools, techniques for emotional balance. For over 50 years, Angela experienced abuse, bullying, and belittling, and through that exposure, she developed methods of emotional management. Angela has been featured in USA Today, the Los Angeles Tribune newspaper and magazines, and countless other media exposures. Angela is an international best-selling author with 8 published books. And today she's going to talk with me about self-regulations of emotions. Hi.
Hello, Shannon. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
And really, in terms of the title self-regulation, I don't like the term emotional management because the repression and suppression of emotions leads to all kinds of trouble. And so I do not advocate for people to manage their emotions. I advocate for people to feel their emotions.
Nice.
And it's so what I do with my children's books, I teach children how to feel emotions, every kind of emotion, so that they do not have to choose numbing behaviors. And the numbing behaviors that most of us learned from our parents or our grandparents or people in our family are emotional avoidance, eating, some bulimia, some anorexia. My father was alcohol, other people had drugs. There is so much emotional damage done when people try to avoid their emotions. And I'm sure Nicole knows all about how emotions turn inward when they're repressed and become disease. So there is so much evidence in this world on why we should be taught as children how to actually process emotions. And that's what my books do, but they're also channeled from the angelic realm, and they are coded with self-love activation for children. So, if I had my books when I was a kid, I could have lived an entirely different life and not accepted the abuse that I experienced.
So tell me, what do I know? The Wildfire Awaken. What is that?
I'm sorry, the Wildfire Awaken.
Yeah. So I was reading something about your books.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I thought that
I'm
was a
sorry.
thing, but it is a thing. So yeah. I didn't work in corporate. I worked in government. And middle management government is very similar to the disempowering, soul-sucking job that you'll have in a corporate environment. And I was in a marriage that was emotionally abusive. And I stayed in that marriage for 32 years. What caused me to reconsider was a wildfire that swept through Northern California in 2017. It was the Tubbs wildfire. It was all over the news. My friends in the Netherlands called us and said, "Are you guys okay?" It was a pretty big deal. There were 5,000 homes in Sonoma County, California, that were destroyed overnight. And my book club, 12 women, 10 of us lost our home that night.
Oh,
so
wow.
It really changed life for so many people. And what I learned in that event is that these kind of crisis, this kind of adversity that comes into our life can either be the stone that weighs you down and ruins your life, and I'm the victim of this circumstance, or it can be a door that opens a whole new chapter for you to follow. And fortunately for me, I had that kind of, okay, what's next sort of approach to life, and started a whole new chapter. Since the wildfire, I divorced that former husband. I left my job. I moved to England, not knowing anybody, and then COVID hit, which was an
Oh,
interesting
wow.
talk about learning how to be with yourself for a year and a half without having anyone else there. Um, yeah. But everything that happened was part of what I needed in order to do the work that I do now. Everything. So I wouldn't change my life at all if I had to go back.
So, what would you say are the dangers of repressing emotions?
Mm. Um, I can talk about that and generational trauma at the same time. So, one of my earliest memories was my father picking my mother up and going to throw her out the window of a third-story house. And I think I was 2 years old. And that's my earliest memory. My father was an alcoholic, and he was very abusive when he was drunk. My really worst memory of him is when he went to slit my mother's throat while she was asleep on the couch. And he wasn't doing that to scare her. He was doing it to scare his children. So I didn't grow up with a man that I could trust. And I ended up choosing a man that I shouldn't have trusted and staying in that abusive marriage because that's what I knew. You know, someone talked about having that stability. I think it was you, Renee, talked about that stability, even though you don't like it, even though it's painful, it's still what you know. And that's what I thought I deserved because I thought this is how life is. So my mission in life is to give kids the tools that they need so that they can look at it through a perspective that serves them rather than taking on those filters and those perspectives handed to them by the authorities in their life. The generational trauma aspect comes into this because, and I didn't, I didn't know this until I was 54. My aunt one day said to me, Jimmy was such a sensitive child. Jimmy was my dad. He was the monster in my house. There was not a sensitive bone in his body that I experienced. And what happened is that he was a sensitive child, born in 1925 to a man who expected him to be a man. And so his father abused him, told him he shouldn't be the way he is. And my father ended up with feelings of unworthiness. I can't do anything right. So he drank. He drank to numb those feelings. His behavior while he was drunk caused him to cause pain for the people in his family. So it just being drunk didn't save him from the feelings. It just made the feelings even stronger.
Mhm.
And that is the generational aspect that I saw played out in my family. And I know that we are now at the stopping time. I talked about how my books are channeled. And this is because I have a deep family lineage in the angelic realm, my soul. And it is, we are coming to a time where the children, the next generation, they're going to be the ones who bring peace on earth. If only we can support them and give them the tools they need to do that work.
Well said. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Yes. So, what would you have to say to us here today about some of the, I mean, because what you write in your books can apply to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
So, what are some of the things that you could tell us about what you teach the children when it comes to empowerment?
Sure. One of the simplest and yet most profound tools that I teach is to have focused attention on your feeling. When you have a feeling that you don't want to feel, put your focus on it. Notice where it is in your body. Notice how intense it is. Give it a color, give it a name. Name that feeling. And then say, you know what? It's okay for me to feel this. And give yourself permission to feel that feeling. The biochemistry of a feeling is timed to be about 2 minutes. I heard 90 seconds. So what happens when you give yourself permission to feel that feeling, the feeling will flow. And there are many times in our life, no matter how we are aware and enlightened, it doesn't matter. There are times in our life where we will say, I don't want to feel this. And so we'll go to, for me, it's eating chocolate. And so I'll go and I'll get the chocolate and I'll start eating some. Um, it's not, that is a momentary thing for me because I know how to deal with feelings, but I say that just because no matter how enlightened we are, we may also find ourselves overwhelmed by a feeling. So it's okay for you to say, you know what, I can't deal with this right now and put it off. But you do need to allow the feeling eventually because those repressed feelings build up in your cellular structure and they create disease. Or there's actually two different ways that repressed feelings will express. They will express inward with disease or social anxiety or other anxieties and worries, or they'll express outward and people project their own inner self-hatred onto other people and attack them. And so the outcomes of repressing emotions is so huge in this world that it is, well, it's a big mission to teach people that, you know what, emotions, they're only energy. That's all they are. They're information. And when you allow yourself to feel them, you're actually processing them. And so then they dissipate. So when you think of an emotion that is huge, like grief, when you lose someone that you love, it's really hard to say, yeah, I'm going to let myself feel that because it's so overwhelming. and it's okay to step back from it. But when you can, take a breath and allow that feeling to flow. It will flow quickly. What happens is that your mind becomes entangled in the thought, I don't want to, I miss that person. My life isn't the same without them. I don't want to feel this. That mind, that monkey mind, will keep you embedded in the feeling. And that's why focused attention is so key, because it disconnects your monkey mind and puts your mind directly into the feeling. That way, you're not thinking about the story of what happened.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I think I got disconnected there for a minute. Did I disappear, Colleen?
I think you did. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. Did a magic trick. I missed a couple. There I am. I missed a couple things that you had said, and I'm sorry about that.
Technically, it worked out like so beautiful because she was like really speaking to the camera and it was just her and it was just a beautiful moment. And I'm sure
Aw,
everybody's
thank you,
going to feel
Colleen.
that, Angela.
Yeah, well, the focused attention, which is the little tool that I talked about, is something we can use at any time, at any place. Once I had to use it for someone, a podcaster that I was speaking to, and she had lost her best friend's son to a car accident the night before. And she was unsure if she could do the podcast. And I said, look, no one is going to blame you if you step away and don't do this, because everyone's going to understand how you feel about it. And just give yourself permission to disconnect and say, I can't do this anymore. And she said the mere act of knowing that she could give herself that permission allowed her to do the entire podcast. Thank you, Renee.
Voice of an angel. You do very, very soothing. Very soothing.
Thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that Nicole talked about is give yourself grace. And that is a huge aspect of what self-love is. And I don't want to like step on what Nicole did. She was beautiful and she brought some beautiful energy in. But self-love is so key. And so when you find your monkey mind doing that inner critic thing and coming at you and telling you, you screwed up, you did this, you did that, take a breath and just know that you are magical. Know that those inner critic thoughts are not yours. They belong to all those people who criticized you and handed you those filters and perspectives and just layered on you their own lack of self-worth so that they couldn't see you shine more than them. Those aren't the truth about who you are. Take a breath and give yourself grace.
I love that. So can you tell me, I don't mean to have you keep repeating yourself, but I want to be able to use some of this. Can you tell me with the negative emotion, what did you say? You would give it a color?
Yeah, so it's, and I'm going to say that there are no negative emotions. That's a human construct where we assign a value to an emotion because we don't necessarily like how it feels. But emotions are energy. And so what the focused attention process does, it disconnects your monkey mind
Mhm.
because you're putting so much focus on the feeling, and you're looking at, what does it feel like? Where is it located? What is the intensity? If I could name it, what would I name it? If I could color it, what color would it be? Like the other day, I'm very clairsentient, which means I feel other people's stuff. And the
Mhm.
other day, my sacral had this huge black energy in it. And I just, used my tools and got rid of it. But these kind of things of putting so much focus on the feeling itself and then giving yourself permission to feel it allows the energy to flow, and that feeling will dissipate.
Nice. I just wanted to get a list of those questions again, because I would like to use that on some of my children. Look like, name it, color it.
Yeah, I call it feel, name, and allow. That's it. 3
Okay.
steps. Yeah.
Nice. Name and allow. Well, I will definitely have to check out some of your books.
Mhm. They've been reviewed by people from like 10 years old to 80 years old, and pretty much loved all over. And when we were doing the exercise, what's the most proud thing? I was recently, I was named as one of the top celebrity experts by Los Angeles Tribune magazine, but that's not my biggest accomplishment. My biggest accomplishment was when the Golden Wizard Book Prize gave me the gold medal for my book series and wrote that these books are transformational and life-changing, and every parent should buy one for their children.
Oh, that's
That
wonderful.
was my biggest accomplishment.
I would imagine. I would imagine. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So I know Colleen had linked in the chat about your free gift.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
I also added your book chronicles on
Thank you.
Amazon.
perfect. Perfect.
You're awesome.
So is there anything else that you wanted to add that I didn't touch base on with you?
Well, there is promise, because when I left the marriage, I would have been the perfect client for Renee. I didn't know that I even had a voice. I didn't know who I was. And I was in such a down spiral. It took me 4 years. And some of that was being alone with myself in England, where I didn't know anybody. Walking, through COVID, I would walk through the trails. I lived in the Cotswolds area, and the trails were gorgeous. So I would spend 5 hours hiking the trails, being immersed in nature and feeling all that fey energy, all those fairies around me, and just being so inspired for my books. So the good part is, no matter how low you can be, there's always something more for you. When I lost my house in the fire, I was homeless. I was, had nothing. And that was that's like the rug being pulled out from under your life. And how do you start over from that?
Right.
You do it a step at a time. And, now I have this wonderful, just brilliant group of brilliant friends, like the women on here. And I have my husband, current husband, who is, many of you know, Dr. Richard Kay. He's just an amazing man. And when we did the love exercise, I was like just imagining him holding me last night, because that's just how much love there is in our relationship. So, yeah, I appreciate you all.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this summit.
It's really been my pleasure, and I really, if I could say, if I could impress on your heart that you are magical. You are magical, and life beat that magic out of you, but it's still there, and it's a spark in your heart.
Mhm. And everyone
And
does, for sure.
yeah, and just allow that spark to grow. Just feel it, and your life will get more magical.
Mhm.